into the future where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
Do you remember, cast your mind back to the presidential debates? Obviously, healthcare was a bit of a hot topic. Lots of people worried, lots of people not having a great time under Obamacare. And repealing and replacing Obamacare became a battle cry of Donald Trump. He also employed the use of very powerful imagery, that of people in the streets dying. Do you remember this? I think this might have been the first time it came up, but we can't have people dying in the streets was something that we heard over and over again. This might have been that expression's inception.
We are going to repeal Obamacare. We are going to repeal Obamacare. We are going to replace Obamacare with something so much better. And there are so many examples of it. What I do say is there will be a certain number of people that will be on the street dying. And as a Republican, I don't want that to happen. We're going to take care of people that are dying on the street, because there will be a group of people that are not going to be able to even think in terms of private or anything else. And we're going to take care of those people. And I think everybody on this stage would have to agree, you're not going to let people die sitting in the middle of a street in any city in this country.
All right, so we've agreed. Dying in the middle of the street is bad. And for want of further expression, dying in your bedroom is bad because you can't get health care. Dying outside of a hospital because you can't get health care. Dying in your car, any place that you would die because you don't have health care, that's a bad thing. In the street, it creates an incredibly powerful visual in your mind's eye. But you know what? If you're like me, as simplified as it was, I mean, look, this was the whole Trump campaign. Offer bumper sticker size solutions to very complex problems. But I kind of like that. You know, I felt as though if the impossible becomes possible and Donald Trump becomes elected, my fondest wish was that we wound up in sort of a Reagan-y type of situation. Reagan was a guy that a lot of people believe operated from a place of principle. Didn't necessarily know the ins and outs of politics. And in a lot of ways, that was Donald Trump's appeal. Hey, he's going to simplify things. And he's going to get things done, and he's going to cut through the red tape, and he's going to drain the swamp and all of the above. But Ronald Reagan has this thing, or had this thing rather, which was, hey, this is important. I want this done this way. You guys go do politics and figure it out. But this is what I want. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you need anything, I will be eating TV dinners with Nancy and going to bed early. And he operated from a place of principle and a bit of a naive place when it came to the political process. But that was in many ways very, very refreshing. A lot of people felt politicians were too mired in it, that they lost sight of the average man or woman because they were so ensconced in the world of politics. They started thinking in abstract terms, not really considering people as people, but more as figures on a spreadsheet. And that was something people were only too glad to hear a politician was doing away with. And I think that was a big part of Donald Trump's appeal. Like I said, bumper sticker size solutions to very complex problems. But the hope was, I think, for a lot of people that, hey, we're not going to have people dying on the street. We're not going to have people dying on the street. We're going to come up with something that is so great. We're going to talk to hospitals. We're going to talk to doctors, and we're going to get the best people on it. And we will have the best health care, let me tell you. And you heard various iterations of that throughout the course of the campaign. Cut to, who knew healthcare could be so complicated? And look, I really, really hope that every last one of us, whether you voted for him or not, he's still your president. He still made you a promise. Americans should not be without healthcare in any city in America. You should not be, quote unquote, dying in the street. Now, this new version of healthcare, the healthcare bill, has hit a couple of stumbling blocks and has some vocal critics. I suppose the biggest and most vocal critic is the American Medical Association. They said that the legislation fails to protect their most vulnerable citizens. They said medicine has long operated under the precept of primum non nocere, or first, do no harm. Other people are telling us that 22 million Americans would lose their health coverage by 2026 under the Senate bill. So hold your president accountable. Whether you voted for him or not, hold your president accountable. He promised you would not die in the streets. Make sure you do not die in the streets. Yours is the voice. Speak the hell up.
Radio 104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So let's be clear on this one. 22 million Americans could potentially lose their health coverage over the next decade under draft legislation unveiled by Senate Republicans this past week just gone by. This is from the Associated Press. That takes us to 2026. Now then, a lot can happen between now and 2026. But I want you to remember who pays politicians. It's you. The money comes out of your blood, sweat, and tears, your hard work, your paycheck. And whether you love Trump and voted for him, couldn't stand Trump, voted any way else that you could possibly think of, the bottom line is he's your president. Maybe you didn't vote whatsoever. There's that whole thing, you can't complain if you didn't vote. Garbage. You pay taxes, you can complain. You take 30, 40% out of your paycheck and hand it over to Uncle Scam so that it can pay politicians on either side of the political fence and afford them the lifestyles that they have and enjoy. You darn freaking Skippy, you get a right to complain. Politics is a weird one, isn't it? I can't think of any other situation where the person who cuts the check has to stand in line, be put on hold, get the runaround when they want to talk to the person that they're paying. The numerous bosses that I answer to, if they go, AD, my office now, I'm going to be there in their office now because that's just the way it works. I hope to be free of that one day, but that's not the way it is. I get a paycheck, and therefore I am accountable to these people that are responsible for employing me, that put food on my table, clothes on my back, and a roof over my head. So if they ask to see me, if they ask for an answer, I'd better be able to produce one. And if I can't today, I better be able to have it tomorrow or within the time frame that they requested it. Or my security in terms of a job, in terms of a gig, is not looking so good. Politics is more or less the only gig I can think of where the people that cut you your paycheck are subservient to you. Or at least that's the fallacy that's been drilled into people's heads over the years. Can I talk to this person who lives off of my hard-earned tax dollars? Is that possible? Oh, yeah. Now, you're going to have to fill out this form, stand in this line, and wait about a year and a half. How does that sound? Well, it doesn't sound very good because, my paycheck is 40% smaller because of this person and people like them. How come I have to wait to talk to them? Well, you just do. It's been that way since the dawn of time. America. Get used to it. And look, this is not unique to America. Obviously, governments all over the world are not made up of the most easily accessible people. But when it comes to an issue as big as healthcare, your health, it really is, and it shouldn't be, it really shouldn't be, but it really is down to you, to me, to all of us individually to speak up. If you're worried that your health care is going to be lost or the health care of someone you know and love is going to be lost, you have to speak up. You have to write your congressman. You have to get on the horn to your mayor. You have to take responsibility for your life. Because this really is your life. It's a do or die situation, and it's unfortunate, and it could be so much better, and it's not. And healthcare in America is a mess. We have some of the finest facilities. We have some of the greatest doctors on the face of the freaking planet. You go to medical centers in places like Minneapolis. You go to medical centers in places like Houston, the DeBakey Heart Institute, where the first ever heart transplant was performed. Would they have been able to do such a thing as that if it wasn't for free market capitalism backing them financially to be able to do something like put somebody else's heart in another person's body? No. I'm going to guess no. But at the same time, to quote our president, we can't have people dying in the street. This means you. So if you're worried about your health care, if you're worried you're going to lose your health care, you must speak up. You must be counted in this situation. I genuinely, in my heart of hearts, believe that Donald Trump, when he got up in front of all of us and said over and over and over and over and over and over again that we cannot have people dying in the streets and we will not have people dying in the streets, that was his intent. That was his intention. That was the simple black and white reality of the situation. We can't have people dying in the streets because they don't have health care. That's not okay. And then you get into it, and you get into the medical industrial complex, you get into the way that healthcare is structured and has been structured for so many years, and you go, it's a scotch more complicated. And that seamless transition he promised is not looking as seamless at the moment. And it's filling people with dread and with horror. And you know what? Well, it should. But it's not done yet. It's not over. The fat lady's in the building. She's warming up. She's doing her scales. But she has yet to sing when it comes to healthcare and this administration. So get in there. Get in there and fight for yourself, for your neighbor, for those that you love. It's down to you. Money making, skills on the mic, keep me paid every day, and provided the battle, just bow down, better act like you know. Come on.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radio Land. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
Give it up, yeah. Give it up, yeah. Bring this on, come on, come on. That's the way you do what we do. That's the way you do what we do. That's the way you do what we do.
Alrighty then. Should we talk about Johnny Depp? I think we should. I mean, you know, it's just...
I'm out of the loop. What happened?
It's a silly guy being silly and saying silly things, but there is an important lesson to be learned. Johnny Depp apologized for his Trump joke. Did you hear what his Trump joke was?
No.
Well, we'll get into that after we look into the events of today. What's going on in the world, Funkmaster?
George Clooney's in the news. George Clooney and his partners are selling their tequila business for $1 billion.
Billion? Like
billion with a B.
That's, didn't he invent that tequila business, like, as a goof, as a joke? Like him and Sammy Hagar. Oh, let's have a tequila company. Hey, it did pretty good. Let's sell it for $1 billion. I guess there's a lot of money.
I remember the first time I saw it. It was on an 18-wheeler truck that went by. I went, George Clooney's face and tequila? Huh. What do you know?
What do you know?
Worth $1 billion.
worth $1 billion. It is the single biggest tequila transaction in the U.S. since David Hasselhoff celebrated Cinco de Mayo. Go on.
Entertainment Weekly just published their first LGBTQ issue.
How is... Not trying to be flip, but how does this differ from every other Entertainment Weekly issue ever published? Maybe, okay, I don't know. All right, then.
I have not seen it.
It's Pride Month. Pride Month is... Pride Month to me, like Black History Month, like all of these holidays that are meant to celebrate those that feel marginalized, they're depressing. They're really depressing to me. Because it's 2017. We're supposed to have evolved past this. This is supposed to be our grandmother's problem. This was supposed to be like Abraham Lincoln's problem. The idea that we're still hung up on any of this, that people don't just feel like they can be and get on with their lives, is bananas to me. It really is beyond belief that anybody would not, in their heart of hearts, feel equal. And it's crazy. We haven't come anywhere near as far as we think we have. You, me, all of us. I would imagine that if you stuck around for any length of time listening to this show, you're a fairly enlightened individual that doesn't feel superior to anybody else because of your gender, because of your sexuality, or because of your color of skin. Because if you do, well, that's just foolish, I tell you, foolish. Short-sighted, and it's wrong. And there's really no ifs, ands, or buts about that. We talk about the gray and how you find truth oftentimes in the gray. But when it comes to equality, it's a binary thing. We all deserve it. We're all in America. And the fact that anyone doesn't have it at this stage in the game, still, So, I love watching the Pride celebrations. I think that's cool. Yeah, rock on. Go do your thing. That's awesome. But it also makes me angry and sad that something like that is even vaguely necessary. Just absolutely blows my ever-loving mind. It's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know if you've been, like I said, listening to the show for any length of time, but do you know how I wound up doing what I'm doing? I wanted this job. I wanted this job in talk radio. I was this kid that was on the air doing rock radio. And then I noticed down the hall, there was this talk station. Their ratings were a pimple on the ass of the rock station I was working for. Yet, all these talk radio dudes were driving a much nicer car than I was driving. And I was like, how the hell does that work out? I always thought, in this game, ratings equals money. And so I saw what was going on over there, and I was like, all right, I would love to be a talk radio guy. That seems to be where the bucks are. And by the way, you should know, my forays into talk radio were a completely selfish cash grab to begin with. And then, cut to, haven't made a freaking dime off of it in 5 years that we've been doing it. Great ratings, great stations that we're on, but I've yet to see any green. I just love it, and I love the relationship that you, me, and Funkhauser have cultivated. It's the best part of my day every single day, hanging out with you. So I couldn't be happier. But anyways, I digress. I got into this because I thought there was money to be made doing it. And then, after I'd been on the radio, doing sort of weekends, this goof-off weekend show in Houston, Texas, a job opened up, a real legitimate job. A day part, as we call it. That's a little peek behind the radio screens. You will be on the air from this hour to this hour. This will be your little piece of radio real estate that you own. And the person that got fired from the gig had ratings that were so abysmally bad in this town that I was like, hey, put me in, try me out. You might be figuring out someone else for this, but give me a shot. I'm number one at everything in this same town that you were trying to get some ratings in. You heard me do talk radio. I would like to do that. I think I'd be good at it. And I think I could really help grow this radio station that I want to be on, and this time of day, and ratings, and you're going to make more money off of it. And look, I probably won't cost you all that much because I'm a new jack at it. So just put me in, see what happens. And I'll never forget I had a conversation with the program director of that station, who to this day is one of my best friends. And he was like, man, I know you're good. I know you've got the chops. I know you can do this. But I'm never going to be able to convince the suits upstairs that this is a possibility. I was like, why not? You know, everything's there. Listen, here's my little demo. Here's my ratings history. Here's all the ways in which I excel as a broadcaster. My resume at this point was kind of freaking chubby. Like, I had a thing going. And he was like, yeah, but look at you. I was like, what do you mean look at me? He's like, you look like an overgrown kid that should be skateboarding outside of a 7-Eleven, and I'm never going to be able to convince the people at corporate that you can do this job because of their impression of you. I was like, because of the way I look, you can't see me on the radio. They're like, well, they can see you when you walk through the halls. I was like, because of the way I look. Shorts, sneakers, ball cap, long hair. This is not... He was like, yeah, this is never gonna happen. I was like, what do? Do I cut my hair and start coming in a sweater vest? And he was like, no, that wouldn't help either, because they've known you for the last 5 years or so. So that's not going to be a thing either. You just, look, based on what they know of you, based on your appearance, this is not a job that I can even approach them about with you. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. Couldn't believe for one teeny tiny second that this was a thing. And I went to bed angry, and I woke up angry, and I went to bed angry again, and I woke up angry again, and then I took action, and then I sent a demo to like 8 bazillion people, one of whom was Bill May, the guy that put me on the radio here doing this. And he was like, you know, the old school talk radio is kind of dying out. We don't know when it's going to happen, but they're getting older. The audience is getting older. We need someone that might be next. We think that person could be you. So let's put you on the air and let you sort of quietly develop in the background for several years and see how we do. Needless to say, having a great time developing the background for several years now. Haven't made dime one off of it, but this is my favorite part of my day every single day. But I'll never forget that feeling. I'll never forget that feeling of going to bed angry and waking up angry and going to bed angry again and waking up angry again because I'd been X'd out of a job that I was eminently qualified for because of my outward appearance. And ultimately, I could go to a different town. I could get a sweater vest and a haircut. I could do everything I needed to do to come across as the type of person that you would hire to be on your talk radio station. We're carving out our own path, and I'm happy doing that. But my point is, I had the power to change all of that with a haircut and a rummage through a different section of my wardrobe. Just pull out some of that stuff that I wore to weddings and funerals and my high school graduation, which bizarrely still fits. And I'd be good to go. But it made me think, what must it be like? What must it be like to be born into something that you can't control, into something that you can't dig into your closet and change, that you can't make different by going to the barber? What must it be like to be born into a nationality, a religion, a color of skin, a sexuality that you have absolutely no say in whatsoever, and go through a lifetime of being X'd out of opportunities because of those things? It happened to me once, and it made me furious. Now, the good thing was that it spurred me into some kind of action. But that anger that I felt for about a week straight, until some of my action paid off and I made some headway somewhere, that anger that I'd felt by being marginalized and judged for my outward appearance, I was trying to imagine for one tiny second what it must be like going through your entire life like that, and I can't even begin to come close. So, Pride Month, parades, multicolored balloons, rainbows on Facebook, all the above. It's great. God bless you. But it fills me with anger and sadness that because we don't truly have equality, we have to have something like that. Or people feel as though they have to have something like that. So for that reason, oftentimes when Pride rolls around, I'm like, yeah, Not for the reason that a lot of people would say this, but that's not okay. All right, Funkhauser, what else?
Author Dan Brown turns 53 today. Who's that?
Dan Brown. He's the author. He's responsible for the Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons and far and away the stupidest haircut.
What?
We'll leave that on the podcast, but I hope you caught it for broadcast.
You're writing down the time.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Dan Brown is responsible for the Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, and the stupidest haircut Tom Hanks has ever been seen with. There's no one in this room, yet for some reason I'm blushing.
Yeah, me
I think
too,
it's because
over
I very rarely blunder as a broadcaster. In fact, I never have. That might be the first time in like 13 years.
That was a great one.
That something unfortunate has wafted out of my mouth. But what else?
Just adding fuel to the fire. Cyndi Lauper turned 64
All of a
today.
sudden, those decisions not to put me on that talk radio station seem pretty well founded. Just climb down off my high horse here for a second and recognize that maybe I wasn't ready to have that day part under my control and be part of my responsibility. What were we talking about, Funkhauser?
Cyndi Lauper is turning 64 today.
Yep, she marked the occasion with a remix of one of her classic songs. Girls Just Want to Have Prunes. Go on.
O.J. Simpson could be out of jail as soon as October.
Yeah. Of course, the timing's dependent on how fast he can retain Bill Cosby's lawyer. Holy freaking God. OJ getting out is going to be very interesting. If he decides to talk to press, which I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will talk to press. I'm sure he'll have a book to sell. I'm sure, because, I can't imagine the guy's rolling in it. He's going to need to make money when he gets out of jail. And if he's out of jail as soon as October, how does somebody like him make money? As a paid spokesperson for? No, I don't think so. So he's going to have to go out, talk to the press, and people are going to pay him, and he's probably going to write a book and do a TV special and all the above. Because interest in him is at fever pitch. That movie where the guy from Friends played Kardashian dude, and then the documentaries that have been made, and that other documentary, did you see the one that was made about the Louis Vuitton garment bag that nobody knows where it went to, but they don't know what the hell's in it? Did you catch that one? Oh my gosh, this is like this one piece of evidence that allegedly has never been accounted for, and could it contain bloody clothes? Possibly. Where is it? Nobody knows. So, there is rampant speculation about all things OJ, which means when he comes out of prison, he's going to be talking to the press and talking a lot because that will be his source.
You think he'll get out?
Yeah, I think he might. Because, you got to remember, he's not in jail for murder. He's in jail for... He tried to steal back some sports memorabilia, and it got a little violent, I think, I don't know exactly what he was charged with, but it wasn't murder. So him getting out, based on what he was in jail for, yeah, why not?
You walk these streets most every day. You're waiting to get washed away. Radio. 104.1.
Now, more AD on the radio.
Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving you my musical savior. Back once again, it's your boy AD, and can't nobody rock a body better than me. Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving you a musical savior. Back once again.
All right, Funkhauser, we're going to talk a little bit about Johnny Depp and why it's important that we talk about Johnny Depp
thank
and what
goodness.
he did and why we have to be better in a little bit. Right now, let's roll through what remains of the news. What else is going on in the world?
Well, legal pot is cutting into alcohol sales.
Yeah. Yeah. Legalize marijuana. eating into a chunk of our legalized marijuana is eating into a chunk of our economy. Now, there's big dollars involved in alcohol sales. And could it put potentially a bunch of people out of work because legal pot is cutting into alcohol sales? Well, yeah, maybe. But you got to remember, you got to bear in mind, it's also caused a huge jump in the sales of pizza and Funyuns, so it all evens out. The economy will survive and go on.
That's what George Clooney should invest in next.
Yeah.
It's Fritos.
Yeah.
New study confirms that men gain weight once they get married.
Makes sense when you consider having sex burns tons of calories. Do you know couples that have gotten married that have managed to keep up the action in the bedroom?
I really haven't kept track.
I don't think it really makes a difference, honestly, whether you get married or not. I think you just stay with a person for a certain amount of time, and your relationship is going to have its ups and downs. And I don't know. Like, I'm quite certain. We're talking about healthcare. We're talking about healthcare earlier in the show. And I'm quite certain in countries where you have the weight off of your mind, places where there are socialized medicine and social programs, like where I grew up in England, there was socialized medicine. And people tell you, you don't want that kind of healthcare. There's people dying waiting for hospital beds. I don't know. I had hospital beds numerous times when I was a kid because I had this chronic pain. And I was always in the hospital for this stomach problem. Now, what they found out was it was tied to my diet. But for a second, it looked like I might need surgery. So I was there night after night after night, in and out of hospital as they figured this thing out. And I never waited for a hospital bed once. Now, look, this was a long time ago. Maybe things are very different. England is a mess at the moment. But my point is, you don't know how socialized medicine went unless you've kind of lived through it. And I'm quite sure there are many people who live in countries where there are socialized systems that would say it's absolute garbage. I know for a fact that people in England that work really, 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 really hard deeply resent folks that don't as much. You pay incredibly high taxes in countries with socialized medicine. In England, they have this thing called housing benefit. Like, if you lost your job, didn't matter where you were living, up to a point, they would pay your rent because they're like, all right, you're a productive member of society. You've earned this much money. It helped you stay in this kind of home. We're not going to pay all of it for you, but we will subsidize your rent so that you don't have to upheave your life. We think that you are this productive, and therefore we will cover your rent for this long, for this much, until you get back on your feet again, and we think that's reasonable. And if you didn't get a job in that amount of time, well, you could go for a reset or a restart interview. I don't know exactly the terminology. But there are programs in lots of other countries that will help people not only with health care, but with other situations, like your housing benefit. You're not going to be turfed out onto the street if you lose your job. If you are a productive member of society, they think, okay, you've generated income before, you're probably going to do it again, so we're going to make sure that your life doesn't go through a downturn. It's not just about looking after people that are impoverished. It's about making sure that people who are productive remain productive as a member of society, which is interesting. But with all these things, you're going to find people that take advantage of it and abuse the system. And with all these things, when you do have people take advantage and abuse the system and not kind of put in their fair amount of work, folks at the top who are working really, really, really hard and paying lots of taxes into a system that they never really use because they don't require unemployment benefit and they don't require housing benefit and they don't require any of these social programs, are going to be like, I'm paying into this thing that I don't use and I'm being taken advantage of. And so you do see the built-in resentment for sure. But what's interesting when it comes to the doing it thing, I think saying like, oh, you get married and you stop doing it, that's a little unfair because I think couples, whether they're married or not, will eventually, in America, if you're working and you're working hard and you're working like you're afraid you're going to lose your health care and you're working like you got to keep your job, otherwise there's going to be no roof over your head, you are working like crazy. And a lot of the time when people get home after a day of that, compiled and compounded with all the stress that comes with it, do you have the energy or the wherewithal to get into bed and do it, or do you feel super sexy as you're wondering if your house is going to get foreclosed on and if you're going to be able to afford to keep your health insurance? No. These are not sexy feelings. So I think a lot of the time, people sort of like getting busy situation varies depending on how hard they're working and what sort of job security they have in America, which is a shame, really, because if you don't have a bunch of other stuff going on, has been scientifically proven to lift your mood and make you feel better about more or less everything. So, it's too bad. But I do know, I saw some graphs and figures and statistics and pie charts a little while back that said people that live in countries where they do have socialized medicine, where they're not so worried about losing their home, not having a place to live and all the above, they do tend to get busy a little bit because it's worry and stress that eats into your sex life. And, well, you might be angry. You might be angry that you're working really hard and the system you're paying into over and over again is benefiting literally everybody else but you. You might be stressed out because you're fighting really hard. You're going to lots of job interviews, but you can never get a leg up in the world. But when you have knowledge that if you get sick and break your leg, it's not the end of the world, or if you lose your job, it's maybe not necessarily the end of the world, you will still have a place to live, I think that alleviates a certain amount of stress and leads to more doing it. It's interesting. But if you look at countries with social programs, socialized medicine, socialized sort of healthcare, socialized housing benefit, socialized this, that, and the other to help you get back on your feet when you lose your job, those people, they do it more. It's just a fact.
Leave the stimulation to the professionals.
Everyone is so smart.
KPRC, more stimulating talk radio.
There's something happening here, and you should know what it is. The dumbing up of America. Now, more AD on the radio.
All right, Funkhauser, how much time do we have left?
A good 13 here. This is the last one.
All right, yeah, let's do some news, and then we'll talk a little bit about Johnny Depp, what he said about the president, and why no matter what you think of the president, this is not a good move, and this is not helping anybody. All right, let's go.
Steve Jobs did not want Apple to make the iPhone.
Yeah. He's regarded as this massive visionary. And what are the biggest Apple products, Funkhauser? There's the computer. There's the iPod was this substantial thing, but now everybody just has a phone instead of it. Does anybody still have? They still sell iPod minis, right? People still have
so,
just
yeah.
MP3 players, or sorry, they've got. This is what I hate about like iTunes and why I don't have iTunes, because like you get to have your iTunes collection, but it's got to be iTunes on your iPod, sync to your computer, all the above, and you can't remove a song from it and like email it to somebody else and all. It's just. If I paid for it, I want to be able to take it with me where I go, whenever I want to, and play it under whatever format I need to, not your funky Apple file, which doesn't sound any better than a Wave. Let's be real here. It's just too freaking proprietary, so I do not pray at the altar.
Neil Young is very upset right now.
Oh, what his porno stuff?
There's differences in MP3 quality.
No. I said like what's the Apple file called? The AIFF file.
Yeah.
That's it, right? Yeah, and that I don't hear any difference.
Yeah.
In the quality between that and a WAV file, which is the non-degrading high-quality file. Now, Neil Young has that Pono music player thing, which is next level in terms of quality. And Neil Young himself has said it's indistinguishable to the human ear. You don't hear the difference, but you feel it. So make that what you will. No, that's exactly what old Neil had to say about sound quality of the files and all of the above.
Old man, take a look at my phone. It sounds a lot like your box thing.
But yeah, so I guess those are the big Apple products: the computer, the pod, and the phone, right?
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to think of other things. I think that's it. The pad.
Yeah, so and just think, Steve Jobs didn't want Apple to make the iPhone. I think he changed his mind, though, after realizing how much fun it would be to completely destroy people's ability to ever have a face-to-face conversation.
FaceTime to FaceTime conversation. Thank you.
It's interesting, though, because like you and I, we grew up in an era where you picked up the phone and called somebody, or you met them face-to-face. This whole sort of texting thing only came in when we were nearing adulthood. We'd done some sort of developmental stuff in the run up to that. So we're used to interfacing in a one-on-one sort of way, or over the telephone. And what a lot of people are concerned about now with the rise of, I don't like it. Aziz Ansari did a great bit on it. Like, if a ghost came back after all these years and was like, what is going on with technology? What's happening with technology? Oh man, you wouldn't believe what we've got going on. Like phones, like a phone you can send email on it, you can send text messages on it, you can surf the internet on it, you can pay all your bills on it, you can manage massive financial transaction on it, you can take pictures with it, you can create movies. You've got greater filmmaking capabilities in your phone now than Orson Welles had when making Citizen Kane. Phones are incredible. You won't believe all the stuff they can do, ghosts from the past. Oh, what are they like for making phone calls on? Not that good. It's just...
Sorry, I didn't get the last part.
It's not... Yeah, exactly. It's just like, it's crazy that the phone can do all this stuff, but they're kind of unsatisfactory when it comes to having actual conversations on. So the art of conversation is a dying thing, and that's sad on a cultural level. But from a developmental sort of standpoint, because kids are growing up these days with texting in one form or another, or messaging being the main form of communication, when you send a text message, like Funkhauser, if you are, let's say, about to text a girl, here's my number, here's your number, how many times do you rewrite and edit that text message before you send it?
At least once.
At least once.
At least once. You have to review your work before you submit it. Right.
But if it was just a girl that you'd met in person and were calling on the phone, you don't have time to rewrite and edit. No, you just got to open your mouth and trust that something good's going to come out. And because we are so dependent on messaging and texting and all of these things where you can think about your thought, write down your thought, then edit your thought so it sounds like a better thought, because we're so reliant on all that, kids today are growing up without the ability to think on their feet. They've got all this time to think about the stuff that they do. Interestingly enough, you look at Twitter and you go, nobody's thinking about this stuff before they're tweeting it out. But we as a society are raising a bunch of adults who won't be able to think on their feet in the same way that people did years ago. Now, fortunately, they're going to be interfacing with a bunch of other people who are similarly broken in their quick thinking ability department. So for that reason, there'll be a whole new ethic of communicating all across the globe. But technology, as always, is meant to speed us up, winds up slowing us down. What else?
A woman in Florida was charged with assault for throwing a plate of spaghetti at her boyfriend after he said he was moving out.
Even worse, I believe the spaghetti wasn't gluten-free. The horror. What else?
The 2017 BET Awards went down last night.
Yeah, in case you're wondering why you smelled weed.
It was on like 12 channels at once, too. I was like, skip. I guess I'll watch it on MTV, too. No, MTV Classic has a better 8-second version of it. Oh, I like the logo on VH1 better this time.
It was a showcase of the very best in hip-hop. And DJ Khaled. Go on.
He's the one, I hear. Kim Kardashian surprised Kanye with a trip to Japan for his 40th birthday.
Which was a nice thought, but she could have saved a whole bunch of money and made him a lot happier with a mirror. Like, there you go. Happy birthday. Greatest present I've ever received. Of all time. Go on.
My birthday. Happy birthday to me. Johnny Depp.
Did you ever...
What?
Are we out of segments? Do we have one more?
Yeah, this is it.
This is it?
Till tomorrow.
All right, hold on just a second.
All right.
I got to find something. I got to play you something. So here's Dave Chappelle talking about what it was like to meet Kanye West for the very first time.
You got to book this guy, Kanye. I said, okay, I booked the guy. And it was like Muhammad Ali in Olympic Village. Like, he just knew he was going to get the gold. And it was the day that Jay-Z's Black album came out. And it was me and Common and Kweli and Kanye, this guy that nobody knew. And, you know, the record starts and Jay-Z says on one record, Kanye, you's a genius. You did it again. And Kanye stood up. First time he spoke all day, he goes, stop the record. And rewind that. You're like, what? I'd be like, who is this guy? We're all like, what? No one knows this guy. I didn't know who he was. Everyone else was like, they're laughing, like, you know, they know, I didn't know. and then, you know, Jay-Z's rhyming, and he goes, if skills so, truth be told, I'd probably be lyrically Talib Kweli. And Kweli was like, man. He said, truthfully, I wanted to rhyme like Common Sense, but I sold 5 mil. I ain't been rhyming like Common Sense. And Common's like, hey. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Yeah, but it's getting weird.
And then afterwards, we go to the edit, and this is when everyone knew Kanye was going to be a star. And we were watching sketches. We were like, yeah, we could watch some sketches. No one's ever seen these before. We show him like the Rick James sketch and all these great sketches. And in the middle of it, Kanye's phone rings, and he's like, hello? He goes, no, I can't. No, because I'm at the edit for the Dave Chappelle show, watching sketches that no one's seen before. And then it goes like this, because my life is dope, and I do dope, and he hung up the phone.
Kanye was born!
Yeah. All right, Foggazer. I rest my case on a mirror for making a better birthday gift for Kanye than
I remember that.
than the trip to Japan. Go on.
Johnny Depp apologized for joking about Donald Trump's assassination.
Yeah, I guess if he really cares about others, the way he's saying he does now, after he backtracked, he'd also say something about Pirates of the Caribbean 6. Where's our apology? All right. One more piece of news, and then we really got to talk about Johnny Depp.
All right. Everyone is talking about the Senate Republicans' health care plan.
It's called the Better Care Reconciliation Act because suck it, cancer victims was too on the nose. All right. Oh, by the way, I think, look, the people that are all bent out of shape about it, the people that are all bent out of shape about this are folks like the American Medical Association. They're saying that the health care bill violates the do no harm standard. It cuts Medicaid, reduces funding that helps poor Americans afford health coverage, and for some odd reason, cancels Grey's Anatomy. All I know is I have reasonably good health care that I'm very fortunate to have. I am currently paying off a bill for thousands. What am I paying for? Some ibuprofen and crutches, and no answer as to what it was wrong with me. Yay. All right, then. So, Johnny Depp has apologized for his Trump joke. It wasn't a smart thing for Johnny Depp to do, to make a joke about an actor assassinating a president, and he realized that pretty quickly because he apologized almost immediately. He said, quote, "It did not come out as intended, and I intended no malice. I was only trying to amuse, not to harm anyone." Before the apology, the White House had this to say: President Trump has condemned violence in all its forms, and it's sad that others like Johnny Depp have not followed his lead. I hope that some of Mr. Depp's colleagues will speak out against this type of rhetoric as strongly as they would if his comments were directed at a Democrat elected official. Of course, some people are pointing out that Ted Nugent said things that were arguably even more suggestive of violence, and was not only condemned by this administration. He was not only not condemned by the administration. He was invited to the Oval Office. Doesn't matter. If you are bent out of shape that Ted Nugent said worse than Johnny Depp and gets to be all buddy-buddy with the president, and you think that that's a fair and valid point, and in the world of tit for tat, that makes a great meme. That makes a great bumper sticker size statement that you can go, but actually, if you look into this, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You, me, all of us, it has to start somewhere. You and me, we have to be better. We have to. The gotcha stuff the foolish clawing for any kind of successful one-upmanship in our political process, the red and blue sniping has got to end. It's not helping. It's not helping to take your fellow American and put them in a completely different category of human being than you. It's not helping anybody to act like they are the enemy, and it's not helping anybody to say and do immature and suggestive of violence, things that are suggestive of violence against them. You and me, it has to start somewhere. Why not with you and me? We have to be better. F what Ted Nugent said. F what Johnny Depp said. There's a really old expression, goes way, way, way back, that I've always clutched near and dear to my heart in these situations. 2 wrongs don't make a right. We have to be better, and it has to start somewhere. Why not right here, right now, with you and me? There's so much more to life than this.